So in this video, I'm going to teach you about sadness, grief, how that leads to depression, and what you can actually do to find the solution if this is a problem for you. Now, in the modern world, we have a huge part of the population that's taking some sort of pill or some sort of chemical just to soothe their brain and soothe their psychology, because as a human in today's day, we're in a lot of pain. We don't know how to manage our emotions. The way we soothe ourselves is through high dopaminergic activity, and we have a huge abundance of that because we live in the modern world. So, like sugar, using YouTube, whatever activities on the phone, video games, etc. So all of these things, and then you could even go to the harder stuff like weed, and even the harder drugs on top of that, alcohol, socializing, talking to the opposite sex or same sex romantically. So it's like we have so many ways to escape because we live in just such an abundant world that we don't actually have to face ourselves. We just have something to run to. Now, I think there's two major components as far as helping somebody overcome deep grief and deep sadness and depression. The first component is going to understand the fact that if this is something that you've been for a very, very long period of time, it's actually an identity. So you are a depressed person because you're suppressing yourself and you're suppressing your emotions, which means you're depressing yourself, which manifests as a depressed person. So then it's from an emotional aspect, you identify as a depressed person. So that's one as angle of it. The second aspect of it is actually holding in the suppressed part. So this basically comes off the first one. So you have your identity as someone who is depressed, and then you have the behaviors that are associated that you must take in order to become that depressed person, which is what I said is the suppression. So then what is it that we're suppressing? And by the way, this always leads to shame and guilt and fear. These three things support depression. So then we look at sadness, and we look at it and we say, if we feel sadness, we either get scared, we're ashamed of it because we think it's weak. So we end up trying to spark our emotions, spike our dopamine to avoid the sadness. So we're actually suppressing and repressing these parts of ourselves, which cause these emotions to bottle up within us because we actually can't run away from our emotions. It's not a possibility because it's in our body. We could do it temporarily till it comes back, and then we need something stronger, or we run away, and it just becomes a cyclical cycle. And that's why you see these extremely grumpy, old, miserable people when they're older, is because they've never actually looked at this, and they continuously run away, have this identity of misery and hate and suffering and depressed, and they never actually look at it. So you have the emotional aspect of it, where you're suppressing your sadness, and for guys and girls, but mainly women actually, it's the suppression of anger. So anger is actually a very important emotion that we can't separate from within us. Men usually go to anger. Women have a lot of shame around that too. But when you look at very people pleasing and very soft and weak men, they actually have an aversion to anger as well. Um, and that's because there's going to be shame around it. And yeah, so, but also women, it's like you see a really like women are very ashamed of it too, because there's like a softness that society tells them that they have, which, let's be real here, if you're going to be feminine, you are going to be soft, but there's also an element of anger, stay away from me, setting a boundary. And what I've noticed is that's killed in a lot of people. So then it's the suppression of these emotions. And now, once we suppress these things, like I said, they don't go away. They're stuck in a cellular level. And they also begin to cause problems actually physically. So it becomes a physical manifestation of the emotion. And well, I'm not going to get into some of it because it's a little bit controversial, but there's a lot of medical things that we don't know the cause of it. I believe this is the reason. Now, this is the basic stuff. Start feeling your emotions, start honoring your emotions. Go to therapy, which I'm probably going to make a video about. 80-90% of therapists suck. Usually I won't work with someone unless they've tried a couple therapists before me, because I just need to see a level of commitment. And the reason for that is, anyways, therapist, if you can find a very good one, kudos to you, do that. Or just find someone like me or someone like me, it doesn't have to be me, that actually knows what they're talking about and can heal this for you. And so then you have to look at these emotions, see where they're coming from, which I'm about to get to in a moment here. But see where they're coming from and actually allow yourself to process them. It's the only way. There's no sidestepping the emotions. There's no sidestepping the grief. There's no sidestepping the anger. You have to look at these things. If you don't, you're too scared. You're too ashamed. You feel too guilty. You're just going to be screwed for the rest of your life, just to put it bluntly. Now, that's basic level stuff. That's going to take you so far. It'll get you pretty far, but it's only going to take you so far. Now you want to get to the advanced level stuff, is dissolving the unconscious mechanisms that make you behave in a certain way, which lead to these certain emotions. So, for example, if you grew up feeling very powerless in your life, it's going to manifest into anger. And you're going to be very angry because you feel so powerless and you have the inability to affect anything in your life, and it just makes you furious. So these certain beliefs and these certain unconscious programmings that were switched on when you're a child are actually linked to emotions as well. So on the advanced side of things, you could actually look at these unconscious programmings and dissolve it, and then deal with the subsequent emotion that comes from it, which is, in my opinion, is the fastest way to heal. I've done like just the emotional side without the belief side, and it's gotten me good results. I'm not gonna lie, but this thing right here, the belief systems and the programs, just completely flipped the script, changed my life completely and utterly. So this is the advanced stuff. Another example is if you always feel like there's a threat around you, or you're always gonna look at people like they're gonna hurt me, and there's gonna be fear and anger that comes up. Which once you can dissolve that, you'll dissolve a lot of that fear and that defensive mechanisms, like stay away from me, and then just causing conflict for absolutely no reason. So once you once you start to feel the sadness, because sadness is under everything. Sadness is the lowest emotion. There's guilt and shame that are under it, but those are, like, in my opinion, man-made emotions. So, but like real emotions that we're born with, sadness is going to be under everything. So once you start dissolving the things on top of it, like anger, fear, you get to sadness, you can actually start to dissolve the sadness. And that's where a lot of real healing comes from. And and this is where transformation actually becomes. So you're no longer running from it. You're actually facing the sadness. And what is sadness really? It's just a loss of love. It's the loss of something. It's loss. Loss of circumstances, loss of identity, loss of... It can all be extrapolated into loss. So then you start to heal this, and in the beginning it's going to be very intense. It's going to be a lot of grief. For me, so much grief, like very intense for me. But I had it pretty bad growing up, so I may have had it worse than most people. But regardless, in the beginning is going to be intensely sad, but then what you'll notice is you'll start to have bigger and bigger gaps of happiness and joy, until you get to a point essentially where you have more joy, and then you have gaps of fear, anger, sadness, and you'll get to a point where like you're there's not a lot of things that are challenging you and triggering you. So then you start to step out into realms that cause you to grow and start to trigger you, and then it becomes actually like a game where you want to trigger yourself so you can look at it, heal it, and grow, and you're constantly just challenging yourself, and it becomes actually enjoyable. I personally used to hate sadness. I used to have a lot of shame. I used to have a lot of fear, like it's never gonna go away, which it does. Sadness comes in spurts, so it will go away. Um, but yeah, I used to hate sadness, and now I like it actually. I know it's because I'm grieving something and I'm loosening my identity on something, and it's to me it's a game. So basically, just to wrap everything up, depression, grief needs to be faced, needs to be processed, needs to be looked at with all your other emotions as well, which I'll make videos on in the future. So make sure you subscribe and you make sure you like, please. And so we'll need to go through these emotions, and we need to process them, and that's how we heal. And once we start to do this, our emotional state will just start to rise and rise and rise as we let go of old identities, belief systems, and just become a better human being. Hopefully this video was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.